Wondering if these challenger banks are any good? Well, I joined Starling Bank 5 years ago for both personal and business, and I'm about to tell you in this no-frills review what's good and what's not so good. This isn't a detailed technical review, this is a short review that will tell you what you really need to know. When challenger banks first came onto the horizon, I was really drawn to them. I'd been complaining for years how all these mainstream banks, even the really good ones at the time, didn't have the best online offering. And the ones that did have the so-called best online offering could have done much better. Now, I wouldn't say I'm an early adopter, but I do get to things much earlier than the mainstream. And with an interest in all things finance, digital and banking, I was immediately drawn to these banks. Like most of you, having access to convenient banking on the go is really important to me. The more convenient, the better, as long as security is not compromised. Add to that getting instant notifications of your transactions, being able to manage your card, freeze it, unfreeze it on the go, viewing your PIN on an app, and I was sold. I'd heard of all the usual names you'd now recognize, like Monzo. There was an up-and-coming one at that time called N26. Revolut was around in some shape. And of course, the one for this review, Starling Bank. My main criteria for choosing a banking provider were as follows. Number one, it had to have a current, not just an applied for, but a current banking license. Number two, it had to have FSCS, FSCS, FFS, not really, just FSCS protection, a Financial Services Compensation Scheme. This is where, if they're signed up, they guarantee £85,000 of your money, just in case the bank runs out of money for whatever reason, like some did back in 2008 at the financial crisis. Number three, and this is quite an important one, it had to have a customer base that was actively raving about it. The more happy customers it had, the more I was confident that I was getting into bed with the right people. Number four, it had to be free for the standard services. I didn't want a monthly fee, no matter how shiny the debit card was that it came with. And number five, kind of a number five, if it had a credit interest rate when all the others were paying zero, then that would be a great bonus. Once I'd done all my research, it was basically between Starling and Monzo. Back in 2018, they were the only two proper banks, proper challenger banks that is. All of the rest of them were either about to launch in the UK or was some type of digital payment service. And this limited the scope of what they could actually provide, including FSCS protection. Having not used any of their services before, and having done my research, it came down to two main things. For everything else, they were pretty much on par with each other. For me, that was a credit interest rate. Okay, it was only 0.5%, but something is better than nothing. And Starling was offering this. And I'm about to show some shallowness, a neon debit card that Monzo was offering. I don't know, neon things just appeal to me for some reason. And that bright orange debit card that Monzo had was really enticing me. But thankfully, logic prevailed and Starling won me as a new customer. The sign-up process was one of the smoothest I've ever experienced with a bank. Some personal details, all the usual stuff, and then a self-recorded video saying a given line, uploaded for them to review. I had my account opened within a day and that was it. I was ready to go. From then on, I started using Starling Bank as a place to put money that I had sidelined for other purposes. It had a credit interest rate, which is still a bit of a rarity for any account with instant access, let alone a current account. Let's talk about the Starling app. The Starling app is great. It's easy to navigate, easy to do all the usual banking things that you need to do, such as receiving payments, sending payments, setting up standing orders, paying for everyday things on your debit card. Everything is done within the app. But those are the basics. Those are the standard things you'd expect any bank to be able to do. And apart from saying they work great as expected, there's little point in dwelling on those. What I really want to talk to you about is 5 things. Number 1, how you log in. Number 2, how instant alerts work. Number 3, how you control your debit card on the app. Number 4, using something Starling calls Starling Spaces. And number 5, customer service. And then towards the end, I'll talk about 2 things that I think Starling really needs to improve on, even now. Now, I still hear about security concerns people have about doing their banking on mobile. The main security concern people have is what happens if I lose my phone or if my phone gets stolen? Will somebody magically be able to drain my account? Well, the answer is no. And actually, the answer is no in the same way it is to what happens if I lose my debit card or my debit card gets stolen. You have a PIN for your debit card and you have a withdrawal limit of cash per day from an ATM. You know, those are just 2 of the security measures that come with your debit card. And it probably shouldn't surprise you that for mobile banking, for app-based banking, there are security measures in place as well. You have biometric identification, for example. So depending on the type of phone you have, fingerprint scanning or facial recognition are standard features these days. And if you don't have those features, or even if you do, a backup option is having a passcode on your app. And actually, these aren't options. A passcode is mandatory for mobile banking. So unless someone steals your phone, makes some Mission Impossible style latex masks using a 3D printer, find your finger next to your phone when they happen to steal it, and or you blurt out your password or passcode to the person that's obviously tricking you into giving them your password and passcode in the first place, you've probably got nothing to worry about. And let's be honest, if you're worried about any of those things happening, then you've probably got bigger problems in the first place. For me and my Pixel, login is via a fingerprint scanner. Easy, quick, and I'm straight into the account. Now let's talk about instant payment alerts. It sounds so simple. It's one of those things which you think, why didn't they do this earlier? It's so great to get instant notifications when a payment comes through, rather than having to check your bank multiple times a day when you're expecting a payment to come through, but it hasn't quite hit yet. Here's what it looks like for a payment coming in, and then for a payment going out. Frankly, I'm surprised the traditional banks haven't already introduced this feature into their apps. I can't see it being that difficult. Some of them have even introduced card control features like freezing your debit card on their app or viewing your PIN on their app. But the instant payment alert features isn't there yet. I just don't get why. So we talked about card control. The number of card control features on the Starling app is great too. Let's show you how some of those work. I typically only use my Starling card when I can't use my credit card for whatever reason. Maybe I've left it at home, or one of those annoying anti-fraud monitoring processes kicks in and declines the transaction when I'm sitting in a restaurant. Other than that, I'm not really a fan of using debit cards when I can put everything on a credit card and earn cash back for it, for example, especially when I'm paying my balance off in full every month. And for the same reasons, I have some of the other card features turned off as well. You can, of course, wholesale lock your card, which I found to be useful too, especially when I know I'm not going to be needing to use this card. For example, when I'm going on holiday, I've got a particular card I use for travel spending, but more about that in a future video. So you might want to subscribe now to be alerted to that. If you've ever saved for multiple things concurrently before, you'll know how having different pots of money for different purposes can be a very useful thing. I've even done a video before on why you should consider having multiple bank accounts for different savings purposes. For big important items or for regular savings purposes, yes, maybe you would consider opening another bank account. But maybe there were small wants and needs that you had that you didn't really want to go to the extent of opening a new bank account for. Well, this is where Starling Spaces comes in. Spaces are a very handy bucket into which you can put money. You can give them a name, set up a target, set up regular payments if you want, or you can leave that part out. On screen, you can conveniently see how far you are along the path to reaching your Spaces goal as well. I love the Spaces element. It allows me to separate my pots out even further. And best of all, the total sum of all of your money within your Starling bank account, not just what's in your current account, but also in your Spaces as well, this is all taken into account before any overdraft charges might kick in. I.e., if you're spending in your Starling debit card, for example, or you've got a payment going out and your current account happens to fall under zero, doesn't matter, as long as you've got money to cover it in your Spaces. So if you're minus £50 in your main current account, but actually you've got £2,000 across your Starling Spaces, then guess what? You won't be charged a thing on overdraft fees. This is particularly useful for me because sometimes I can get particularly aggressive on how much I save month to month. I try new things out, I try and push myself to the limit. And there's nothing worse than being charged an overdraft fee when you've become too aggressive in your saving and you don't have enough money in your account to meet your day-to-day expenses. Right, so those are the positives, but there are a few areas of improvement. Starling's customer services is quite good. As you'd expect, as a digital-only bank, all of it takes place within the app. It has a live chat feature where you can communicate with the customer service representative directly then and there, or it has a messaging feature where you send a query, you receive a response back, you send a query again, etc., etc. So effectively, one is like WhatsApp, instantaneous responses, and the other one is like email, except it all takes place within the Starling app. The issue that usually arises is within the live chat area of the app. Let's say you start in a queue, for example. You've entered the queue and you're at position 4. You'll go off and do something else on your phone or do something else entirely, and you'll wait for an alert to pop up on your phone, usually a purple icon somewhere, which will tell you that your customer service representative is now ready to take your query. So the issue is you tap on that icon, which takes you back into the Starling app, but sometimes, annoyingly, it doesn't take you right into the chat that you started. And so you're left in a bit of a limbo. Do I start a new live chat? Will it take me right into the one I just started and have waited for a customer service rep for? Or am I supposed to do something else? This is even worse if you're partway through a chat, where you've given the customer rep some information, they've gone on to do some digging and ask you to wait for a bit, you've gone onto WhatsApp or to play a mobile game while you're waiting or whatever it is, and when they've responded to you, you can't get back into that same chat. This can of course be very frustrating. Now the app in the early days was a bit flaky on Android, but recent updates have made it much more stable, and perhaps they fixed this feature through those app updates as well. I just haven't had a reason to use their customer service feature recently to be able to test it. The other annoyance I have with Starling Bank at the moment is they don't allow money transfers to the UAE. Now Dubai is a place I do quite a lot of business in, so it would be really handy to have a Forex solution within the Starling Bank app that allowed GBP to AED transfers and vice versa. But of course, if you don't have that requirement to transfer money to and from Dubai all the time, then this won't matter to you as much. I'm just hoping it's in their long list of nice to have somewhere.
Well, there you have it, my review of Starling Bank after having been a customer for 5 years. If you've got any questions or think I've missed something, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.